This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Thom, welcome back.
Hi!
It's been a whole 2-3 episodes since you were on.
I know.
One, I think.
One? No, 2.
2? Was it 2?
I don't know. There's many parts of that prologue.
Because we did the prologue, the last prologue by ourselves, and then I thought Thom was the one before that.
Alviarin.
Oh, that was number 2.
That was number 2. Yes,
That
we
was
had
number 2,
Rob.
you're right.
We did Rob for number 3. So
It's a blur.
I'm editing them now, so that's.
Well, and then I'm publishing them, and
right.
so yeah.
Yeah, there's always that delay.
I have a formal request. I want to be here for the prologue of A Memory of Light, whenever that happens. I have to be there for my chapter.
At this point, I am
Not scheduling that.
certainly taking requests, but not scheduling that in the slightest.
I know, but like I have to be there for that for the first part of A Memory of Light. I have to. Aurelia will remember. She's better at this than you are.
No, I know why. I'm just saying you're gonna have to remind me in about 4 years. Yeah.
I'll text you at 2:00 in the morning randomly in the next every couple of weeks.
Did you also want to talk about JordanCon at all?
If anyone listening wants to help out JordanCon, if you know what it is. If not, JordanCon is a fantasy literature convention that was founded by Jen and Jimmy Liang. They used to run the Wheel of Time track at DragonCon. And when DragonCon was like, oh, we don't care about Wheel of Time anymore, and cut it, Jen was like, well, screw you. I'm going to take my toys and make my own convention. And she did. So from the beginning, the Jordan estate, Harriet, Maria Allen, Bandersnatch is their company, has been involved since day one. Like Tom Doherty, the founder of Tor Books, came to the first JordanCon, and it's just because even on the business side of this community, like with the people that work at Tor, they're great people. Like they were super great, super helpful. Brandon himself donated a bunch of money to the first JordanCon, I believe, and helped us get it off the ground.
I mean, they picked Wheel of Time to publish, so
yeah, that's
great.
JordanCon is a charity. It's a 501c3. I don't do that stuff. I'm just I do guest services. But anyway, 501c3. We donate all our money to the Mayo Clinic. Sometimes we choose other charities. Like a couple years ago, one of our it's a C4. It is a C4. My wife came in and was like, "I heard you." She's flapping over there. A couple years ago, one of our guys actually passed away from cancer, and we did a charity for the hospice center that he spent his last couple of days in. So, and he was in and out of that place too. He had donated a bunch of stuff there, and he had left if you want to donate to something in my name, donate to this place. So we did.
And I got a chance to meet him.
Steve Gradecki, right?
Steve,
yeah.
The JordanCon before that, and he was great. He's a fantastic man. Yeah,
really nice guy, and
really nice guy.
Really knowledgeable on fantasy stuff too. Like he was great to have on panels and stuff when he was able to talk. He did a lot of documentation as well, right? Yeah, he was our video guy. Like he did all of our video. For a while, he was in charge of our YouTube channel and stuff like that.
Yeah. So there's a couple of times where I think I ended up in the back of the room next to him while he was filming, and I'd ask him a few questions about things. Yeah. No, just he was always super helpful and super nice. It sucked to hear that he passed.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was coming for years because he's been sick for years, but it was tough toward the end because it progressed pretty quick, and the last JordanCon he was at, he pretty much knew that was going to be his last one, and it was pretty sad. But he was made a Blade Master, and he was given us his Blade Master sword by Alan Romanchik, so that was pretty fantastic. And it's a little sad. All right, on to slightly better note. The reason why I bring up the charity stuff about JordanCon is we are currently doing a fundraiser for JordanCon itself. Since we didn't have a convention last year, and if we have one this year in person, it was going to be severely reduced in size, and we're going to have hugely increased costs from all of the protective gear and cleaning and stuff that we'll need to buy. Our cost to run the convention has gone way up, and for months now we've been trying to avoid having to do something like this, but we need to do it. So we have a fundraiser going right now. All of the money will go to the convention, running the convention, everyone at the convention is volunteer. There are no paid positions at the convention, so no one takes any money. It'll all go toward helping get JordanCon to run our next convention, whether it'll be in person or virtual. So yeah, if anyone wants to help out, we're about 35 to 40% toward our goal, and anything that you can donate, even if you don't donate, want to just share it in a group of people that you think care about the Wheel of Time or fantasy literature in general, please and thank you.
You want to do it safely, and that requires more finances. Yeah, so Wheel of Time,
Book 7.
Crossroads, A Crown of Swords.
Is it book 7?
Yep.
Am I right?
Yep.
Book
is.
7.
God, I'm proud of myself. I'm sorry.
Chapter 1.
Finally,
after 4 segments of prologue.
yeah, after 2 entire weeks of episodes, we finally got through the prologue.
High Chasaline, and our symbol is the wolf.
Because it's a parent chapter.
It's a parent chapter. High Chasaline's sort of a red herring of a holiday. Like, this is the only time it's ever mentioned, right? Like, I think it's in New Spring as well.
Yeah, it anchors. It anchors the time. Yeah. It's like Christmas or Thanksgiving, right? Think of the good on High Chasaline.
Yeah, there's like the 12 days or some shit, and it's part of another, like the overall holiday of the time, something with a T.
Taisham. Yes. So High Chasaline occurs on the 12th day of Taisham.
Okay. So it's Advent or something.
Right. And it's usually cold, and that's why, you know, if you're a miserable old Scrooge.
A
Scrooge
complainer,
is
if you
for.
complain.
If you're a Scrooge,
because this is where that's where you got the Thanksgiving from. Like, they're supposed to like talk about what they're not thankful for, but
happy with,
like things that have happened to them that year that have been good, that they feel, for lack of a better word, blessed to have happened to them.
So, Perrin, has anything good happened to you in the last day or so?
Yeah, well, I was hewing people down as if they were reeds in a field.
Yeah, I didn't die. That was good.
Rescued Rand, saved the world. Yay.
But also now have severe PTSD about killing lots of people.
Yeah.
Right.
And getting a whole bunch of wolves killed.
And a whole bunch of my friends killed.
Yeah.
19 to be exact.
And wondering if there will be more death and destruction any second now.
Thom, would you like to read the paragraph?
Honestly, okay, so I was thinking, honestly, if each of us read one of the first 3 paragraphs, because it's a really good, like, long-ass read-in, and then we can claim that it's not truly plagiarizing the whole book, because there's 3 of us doing it.
Chapter 1. High Chasaline. The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave birth to it comes again. In one age, called the third age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the great forest called Brame Wood. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning.
North and east the wind blew as the searing sun rose higher in a cloudless sky. North and east, through parched trees with brown leaves and bare branches, through scattered villages where the air shimmered from the heat. The wind brought no relief, no hint of rain, much less snow. North and east it blew, past an ancient arch of finely worked stone that some said had been a gateway to a great city, and others a monument to some long-forgotten battle. Only weathered, illegible remnants of carving remained on the massive stones, mutely recalling the lost glories of storied Coremande. A few wagons trundled by, in sight of the arch, along the Tarvalin road, and folk afoot shielded their eyes from dust raised by hooves and wagon wheels and driven by the wind. Most had no idea where they were going, only that the world seemed to turn somersaults, all order ending where it was not gone already. Fear drove some on, while others were drawn on by something they could not quite see and did not understand, and most of them were afraid, too.
Onward the wind traveled, across the gray-green river Aranon, heeling ships that still carried trade north and south. For there had to be trade, even in these days, though none could be sure where it was safe to trade. East of the river, the forests began to thin, giving way eventually to low, rolling hills covered in brown, tindered dry grass and dotted sparsely with small clumps of trees. Atop one of those hills stood a circle of wagons, many with the canvas scorched or else completely burned away from the iron hoops. On a makeshift flagstaff trimmed from a young dead tree in the drought and lashed to a bare wagon hoop for more height, waved a crimson banner, a black and white disk in its heart. The banner of light, some called it, or Althor's banner. Other had darker names, and shivered as they spoke them and whispered. The wind shook the banner hard, and was gone quickly, as if glad to be away.
I just thought it was cool to read all of that.
It's the whole description of the wind as it passes from northern Andor across sort of wilderness and then into the Battle of Dumai's Wells. And it also, the wind places us, as always, in the continent.
So Cormada, however you pronounce that.
Coremande.
That's mentioned a couple of times. When I was going over it in my notes, Matt brings it up. He talks about dancing with a Seafolk wave mistress at one point in the High Court in Shaineal or something like that, which was in Cormada. And then Brigitte, or I say Bridget still. I know it's wrong. I just don't. She talks about seeing an Aes Sedai there, I think. But there's a Waygate there. So that's the thing that I was thinking about. So like, where's the Waygate? And did the Shadow Spawn use that Waygate when they were invading Andor? Where is it now? Is it underground? Is it in a cave somewhere? Is it buried under a tree or something? Like, just one of those things that we don't have an answer to, and we probably never will. It's just, it's there.
I mean, it seems to be just in a plain in the middle of nowhere, in a city that's long been weathered and destroyed, and there's nothing left.
It could be underground, like the Waygate in Camailan is in a shop in a basement. So it could have gotten buried in rubble or something.
If we look at our modern world, like, it's very easy for societies to become buried. We build on top of the remnants of old societies. And, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years have gone by since the breaking where they've had time to build on these old societies. So, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that there's basements. There's a lot of basements in the Wheel of Time that people have not opened up in a very, very long time.
Right, and so one that opens up underground would be like just a dead end, right? You'd open the Waygate and it would just be a wall of earth, like there's nothing to be done. And then the Black Wind goes yum 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 yum.
That would be something easily done. Be like, if the Forsaken are driving the Trollocs and Myrgil through the ways, be like, oh well, start cutting your way out and see where this leads, and just throw bodies at it because they don't care.
One of the things they can do with channelers, though, is like cut their way out. It's very hard to seal a Waygate from the outside because you can always blow it up. One thing I noticed about this chapter is it actually has a decent amount of recap in it. Now that I think we've talked about this, Chapter 1, I've noticed with Robert Jordan, tends to have a decent amount of, so this is where we are, this is everybody's relationship, this is where we're all standing. And from Perrin's view, it is very useful because he's sort of cataloging it in his own head. But I do know that as I read through here, I've got a couple of paragraphs highlighted where I'm like, well, that's mostly just a recap, ain't it? Mm-hmm. Like, we just saw this. That's telling us where we are, where the Mayanners are, where the Two River folks are, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and he does it in a good way, even from just Perrin's perspective, to make it like, I understand where a lot of people are, not just like where Perrin is coming from.
It's a very excellent job of recapping, right? It's not just an exposition dump. It's actually like getting in Perrin's head and what he thinks about where things are.
Yeah, that was one thing I did notice about this chapter that wasn't recap, was that we see how much Perrin has evolved as a leader. It kind of reminds me of Egwene when she's in the tower and like looking around at the novices, and then later when she's captured in the tower and looking around at the sisters and really taking this sense of ownership of them and like, I have to look out for these people, like even when she's accepted. And Perrin's starting to think like that too. He's like, nobody gave me authority, but I'm cataloging where everybody is, and I'm getting concerned, and I'm making independent choices about how I'm going to lead these people to not murder each other. And that isn't recap. That's new, which is nice. But that's about it.
Perrin's still growing. So, like, Jordan referenced how Perrin's beard is still growing in, and he's itching it. I mean, I could just be reading way too far into it, but I feel like he's using that in that part is symbolism. To be like, Perrin is still growing into his mantle as a leader and his power as a wolf brother and his stance and stuff like that. And it's chafing him, literally. Like, he's still kind of fighting it, but it's happening. And it's to show us that he's not there yet, but it's moving forward.
So the wolf is one with the beard is one with the wolf.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying? Yeah. Like,
as the beard gets longer, he gets more powerful.
Exactly. It's like his leadership skills grow, and it's forced onto him by Fail. It's not something he would choose on its own. But because she wants him to have it, he absolutely is willing to step into that role and grow the beard.
And so then it's a little bit like a reverse David and Delilah thing, right? Because like she's making him take power by making him grow his beard rather than taking his power by cutting his hair off.
Yeah.
Oh, Samson, sorry. I can't. I'm really good at my Christian theology stuff, obviously.
Yeah. I was like, wasn't that Samson? But I don't know.
Well, we do know that Barrelane could have also been playing the Delilah if we go back to the Delilah and Samson thing, because she actually wants to cut his beard off.
That's true, yeah. And she does sort of want to use him for her own political power to support Mayanne, not necessarily for his political power.
Right, to put
so
him
she
on
wants...
a leash for her.
That's kind of what she does
exactly.
with everything.
Right, that's her way. But yeah, otherwise it's a lot of recap. And also being like, oh look, Aram is exemplifying why the Aiel need structure when they have violence.
The wolves, for the most part, there's an interesting dichotomy among the wolves. The wolves that came and survived don't blame him, but the ones that don't come are basically like, see, don't mess with two legs.
Yeah, so that was the other thing. So like there's interwolf politics going on in the background there. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a group of wolves that are like, don't listen to that dude over there. Like, who's he? And then the other group of wolves is like, no, we gotta go help him out.
He's a shadow killer, caged. Like, clearly, like, this is what we have to do.
That's kind of like the argument that the Ogier have, right? About like, oh, well, like, this is just a human thing. This has nothing to do with us. Like...
And the response is, no, it's the shadow. Like, that's not just human.
Yeah, but that's a debate they have to have, so it makes sense that the wolves would
are having the same debate. I really would love to see that. I would love to see some interwolf politics. You know what I mean? Just get a whole chapter with just the wolves. No wolf brothers, nothing, just the wolves.
I'd love just an episode with no dialogue, just wolves. This Aram is so disturbing here.
Oh god, yeah, you could see him slipping into...
You notice the wording, a bleak darkness? That's really close to bleakness.
And because the way of the leaf that he's lost, he is basically an Aiel suffering from bleakness.
Yeah, he is going through the bleakness. This is what the Tinkers and Aiel have to deal with when they lose the way of the leaf or lose their honor, right? And Aram just got dropped through a gaping chasm of responsibility by Perrin and is, in a very, very bleak place that... You know, the Aiel probably could have rescued him if he wasn't so obsessed with a sword being his method of violence. They probably could have salvaged him if it had been any other weapon.
It's probably I mean, it might be that might even be like partially like a subconscious reason why he picked up the sword in the first place. Like it not only is it the antithesis of the Tinkers, but it's the antithesis of the Aiel too, and they're kind of the same halves of the same coin or whatever.
I always see Aram as representing the side of Perrin who chooses violence. It's, he said here, there's a quote, he brings up all the time, which is, if you find delight, if you find joy in the weapon, throw it away. And what do we see? We saw Aram in the Dumai's Wells laughing as he slaughtered people with joy. Like, he is gone over the edge. This is what Perrin could become if he didn't have the hammer and the axe, or if he chose the axe instead of the hammer.
And his interest in going into violence for every solution, right? Perrin's like, man, this is a puzzle that I'm struggling with. Aram's like, sword?
Aram's a murder hobo.
Very much so. Totally.
We have a problem. Can we kill it?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, technically, but that might not be good in the long run.
There may be repercussions. I don't know.
It'll solve my problems now.
And Aram has a problem with the Aes Sedai that are under guard. Matter of fact, everybody has a problem with the Aes Sedai that are under guard. They're kind of a bit of a bone of contention, and this does set up the bone of contention between Perrin and Rand. Like, they do argue about this. And it is the premise in which Perrin is sent out of the...
Yeah, the fake fight that turns real to send him to go get the prophet. That's to send him secretly to go get the prophet.
And also trying to prevent him from having a target on his back by being like, you're on the outs with the Dragon Reborn, you're not an ally. And that way no one's going to target him for attack. Yeah,
but that's all rooted in this issue with the Aes Sedai, which I see Aram's Aram's willingness to kill them and his defensiveness of Rand as foreshadowing why he turns on Perrin.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, I will do whatever it takes. I will betray whatever it takes to protect who I think needs protecting. And currently he protects Perrin and Fael, and through them he's got loyalty to the Dragon Reborn, but later he's only trying to protect Fael from Perrin the Shadow Spawn, right? Like, this is an early foreshadowing of how twisted he can be around this, which makes sense because he has no honor code.
He's essentially a sociopath.
Yeah, but by circumstance rather than inclination. I mean, maybe he was like that already because he's sort of a douche, but like, it's being a douche and there's being traumatized.
But can we talk about, I mean, the trauma he went through? His whole life was destroyed. His family was killed in front of him, right? Like,
you could be a functioning sociopath and not murder people, but then,
right.
he went through the trauma, and then his sociopathic tendencies got focused into, I can kill people too.
No support network, no one pulling him back, no one giving him therapy. Like,
I mean, in some cases, I really feel like Jordan doesn't do that great of a job showing like the effects of trauma on people, but more often than not, I really think he does a good job with it. Like actually showing like characters being affected by the trauma that they're going through. Whereas a lot of other series, Art of Truth, just completely devalues trauma. Like characters just go through horrible trauma and just come out the other side perfectly fine. I could just ignore it. It didn't happen. I'm fine.
I used magic to segment my brain so that when I got out of the trauma, I don't. No.
yeah, that's
Don't bring up. Don't talk about that series here.
Sorry.
Trauma has to affect your character. Characters have to change when they go through shit, or else they're not characters. They're just words on a page. And that's sometimes when I'll read an author and they'll be like, "Okay, it's been a generation. I'm gonna rename all these characters and start them over from scratch." And I'm like, ugh. Like, come on, change your characters. Stick to your characters. Write a 14-book series about the one character and change them through the whole thing. That is what I want to see out of an author.
Yeah, and that is why we've been ruined on Wheel of Time.
Right?
For sure. I mean, it's such an empathy-building exercise to try to follow 3,000 characters through 14 books of 3 years of apocalypse, right? Like, that is a huge, long-term empathy-building exercise.
So question, are the stilled Aes Sedai sweating or not?
I'm sure they are.
I mean,
they're
they don't need, I mean, we know they don't need the one power to do that, but I really think that they're so mentally fucked, for a lack of a better word right now, that they probably can't concentrate on that. Because
he does say, on the far side of the wagon circle, nearly 24 women sat on the ground. 3 appeared young enough that they might have asked them for a dance before he married Fael. Not a bead of sweat showed on any face. Is he including the stilled sisters in that? It appears he is. No? Okay.
I don't. Because they're sitting to the side, right? He's really thinking about the ones that look ageless, which I have a thing to say about that.
Do they have the stilled ones in that
Okay,
group?
Aram says 3 of the sisters are a little apart from the rest.
And that's the ones that are stilled.
Yeah. So Perrin's calling them sisters, but they're also off to the side of the group he was just describing.
Yeah, but how? I mean, it sounds like they're just a little bit off to the side. It seems like they are included in the 24 women.
I just don't see them in a headspace where they can hold the concentration. They're like staring listlessly and plucking at their clothes. Like,
fair.
I was just skimming through again as we go through it. They said there was 22 sisters, right? You said
39 originally, and then 24.
There were 39 originally. 24 is the number that are quote unquote captured.
Nearly 24. Nearly. That's very vague.
And then they just said there 24 warders. So that means that at least 1 or 2 or probably more, because then there's also red sisters in that group.
Yeah, there's several greens
are greens that have more than 1 warder. So
yeah, and there were definitely greens in the group that kidnapped Rand. There's quite a number of
mostly
those, yeah.
because to warders.
We know 3, I think, right? 3's names.
Mm-hmm.
That are in that
Katrina. Well, we get a bit of a name salad here. Just a list. Literally, this has got to be the most name salad we ever get for Aes Sedai. He cut a double handful of names, and then he lists 9 names without any pause, any break, any description. Just, oh yeah, here are these 9 Aes Sedai: Nessun, Eranin, Katarine, Coremande, Sarene, Eliza, Janine, Beldine, and Marith. And I looked them all up. Some of them do stuff, some of them don't. I think Elza in particular is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she helps with Semirog's final hour or so.
You know, Beldine, we've seen. This is just a bunch of interesting. But man, when I'm like, people complain about the name salad that Jordan throws at them, this is definitely one of those places where I'm like, okay, Jordan, that was unnecessary.
Especially because a couple of those Aes Sedai you never see again. Like, this might be the only time their names are ever.
Yeah, Marith Riven.
They all show up again once or twice, but 1 or 2 of them are pretty minor Aes Sedai.
Yeah, I do not remember Marith Riven existing at all. I have no idea what she ever does. I'm sure she shows up in, like, a crowd or something. Like, who are you? I don't know who you are. I know everyone else. Well, no, Janine, I'm not sure about.
Janine is pretty minor, yeah.
Tirana Norrell is never, like, I think she's mentioned one other time.
I think Jordan just made up way too many names he couldn't bear to let go. And was like, you know what? I've got a solution.
And he was like, I'm using it. I will use it. I will use it.
Yeah.
Nessun, she does a fair amount. She is in the circle with Eben Hopwell when he's killed. She's just around. She's one of those more active ones.
Yeah.
Aranin is one of the Greens you were talking about. A bunch of this group ends up getting compelled by Varen to serve Rand in his own fashion. That's this group. You know, it's like, come on, Jordan. You really didn't just have to list 9 names in a row with no descriptions and no...
To be fair, at this point, at book 7 of the Wheel of Time, you're used to it probably.
A little bit, but I would say this is where it gets bad, right? This is where he really, this is, up to that point, every Aes Sedai, it was maybe a little bit earlier, but we could always be like, oh, this Aes Sedai is here for this reason, and this Aes Sedai becomes somebody, and, like, now he's kind of just dropping names into things, and part of reading the books is knowing which names you have to care about and which ones you don't.
You never know.
And so, like, that to me is sort of, there's a couple of what I would call characteristics of the slog.
Yes.
Characters that you will see once and never see again, and going backwards in time to talk about events that you've already seen from another character's POV. And I'm not saying I don't love the slog, right? I absolutely love what's in it, and I read those books, I love the politics, I think they're great. But I think those are the two things that make people have trouble with it, because they don't necessarily, they're like, who are all these characters? I don't know who they are. It's very confusing. And come on, I already saw this scene. Why do I have to relive it again? I want to get on to the next exciting thing that's going to happen. And especially when the rest of the books hadn't come out, you didn't know if there was another exciting thing that was going to happen.
I never felt the slog like everyone else does.
I only did when they were coming out, and the wall fell on Matt, and a whole book went by, and there was no Matt.
Yeah.
And I was like, where's Matt? I love Matt. You can't take him away from me. And I have to wait 2 more years. I've waited 2 years already for more Matt, and I have to wait 2 more whole years? That's like my whole college career I went without more Matt. Like, that was terrible.
Putting it that way, that's rough.
I went from a freshman to a senior in college with no Matt. It was hard. It was hard.
I think I started reading just before Crossroads came out. Was like when I got the series. But yeah, I mean, waiting for the books to come out and having, unanswered questions, it's annoying, but like a lot of people talk about the slog being like bad, like it's like bad writing. And like,
right.
No, yeah, no, that's...
No, and that's not...
It's a shallow interpretation of what we mean by slog.
It's
the scenic route through the plot.
Oh yeah, listen, there's a lot of like avoidance of the main plot line, but some of that side stuff is, I don't know, I like it, and I don't mind.
We love it, yeah.
That's wonderful.
We're all about it, and that's what we talk about the slog here as the part we can't wait to get to, because that's where Watt spoilers will shine, because that's where we can really go in and dig into these things. Yeah, exactly, and really pick apart the details. So when we say the slog here, that is said with the slog, not the slog. Like it's a very different tone of voice. I use it just as a reference, but that's where I think we are. I think that's the 3rd trimester of the birth of this book is the slog. It's the hard part.
No, that's the 2nd trimester, because you still have the last battle.
Right, that's the 4th trimester.
Try?
Mm-hmm.
Try means 3.
Okay, I'm going to go with that.
It's like the 3rd half of the game. It's my favorite part.
Okay.
The 5th quarter. The 19th hole.
I would like to return to the books to criticize an actual piece of bad writing. The others looked ageless, of course. Maybe in their 20s, maybe their 40s. Because women aren't people after their 40s, apparently. The only ages that exist for a woman are between 0 and 40. After that, after 50, you're done. You're done. You don't exist. You're non-corporeal. You're just a ghost. Everyone hallucinates.
That's where Hollywood got it from.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's recap. It's a standard piece of world building in Jordan's world, and I'm really glad that we're not going there with Rafe.
Yeah, it does seem that the agelessness is going to be less of a thing in the show, which makes total sense to me. I don't see any reason why it's not vital. It's this mystery that is through the whole books about why are the Aes Sedai ageless but nobody else is. That's that thing that differentiates them, and that's what he's constantly trying to push.
The only thing that it makes me think of is like Wolverine from the X-Men. So like where his body would naturally start to die, like, you know, you grow and your body develops into your like mid-30s area, and then like you slowly taper off, and that's where you start to die. That's why Logan always looks like he's like in his 30s. So like it could be that, but it's probably not. It's probably not that. Probably just systemic misogyny accidentally still in there.
Right, because channeling slows you and makes you look.
And
younger.
then, but it's the oath rod that gives them the
right, and that in particular,
the Botox
is a tightening feeling on your skin. It's literally plastic surgery. It's literally it's stretching your skin to give you that ageless look. It makes you not have wrinkles no matter how old you are.
Yeah.
I think the misogyny comes from the fact that someone without wrinkles must not be a day over 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like there's this that's a way of expressing this much larger thing of like, yeah, you're not aging, you're not getting arthritis, you're not having heart disease, you could probably still be having children until your 200th birthday. Like,
yeah, you're not losing calcium in your bones.
Right, which is all great, but to be like, it makes you look like you get Botox every day is like, oh.
It's like, come on.
Because that's what women want with magic, is to not get wrinkles.
And there is a certain amount of like, yes, in world all this makes sense, but why did you set up a world where only the women look ageless? Only the women have to get naked for ceremonies. Only the women, like, there's that sort of like, yes, in world the explanations are fine, but when it all adds up, it does become this sort of like, Jordan, you were raised in the South.
He tried.
Yeah,
he did a good job.
And, you know,
and you can tell he wrote Conan fan fiction. Well, not fan fiction. He wrote Conan the Barbarian.
He wrote canon. Yeah, he wrote the books. Yeah. So and there is, especially when you go back and read Warrior the Altai, you can see the transition between what was the sort of misogynistic
or more blatant
women are objects blatantness, the blatant version of it in Conan, and then you see sort of the halfway transition into Warriors of the Altai, and then you can see where Wheel of the Time is even better than both of those, but still not without its problems.
I only got to meet Robert Jordan a couple times, but especially like knowing Harriet and stuff. I don't think Jordan was like misogynist, like outwardly misogynist. I think it's more just like a product of how ingrained that is.
Right.
Precisely.
Like when people don't even realize that, like some people don't even realize that it is misogynistic.
Yeah, unexamined misogyny.
Right. And I would say Harriet has internalized that as much as Jordan did. Like, I definitely don't put that on Jordan, right? Like,
I mean, they're in their 80s from the South, right. And you know they're like much more business mind oriented people. Like,
absolutely.
And it's to talk about a place where systemic misogyny, the business.
So, right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, and so that's why, you know, for their time, everyone has to say for their time. We all have to qualify that, but like, even for now, they're still pretty forward-looking. They're problematic, yeah, but a lot of media comes out now that is problematic as hell.
You have to point it out, because if you don't, then we're glossing over it still, and we can't get that over.
Right. And I don't want to. I do want it to be like, this is not okay, Jordan. Like, maybe you should have written it slightly better. But
yeah. You keep bringing it up with love.
Yeah, of course, with love. This is how we do better.
Yeah, because you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I criticize the things I love because I want them to be better.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm single. Wait, I'm not single, but anyway. I know someone who would be very upset if they heard me say that.
But yeah, no, I've learned a lot about things from what I disagree with Jordan, right? He wrote a world so complete and explored these ideas so thoroughly that even when I disagree with how he did that or what his characters' conclusions were, like, my process with that has taught me things. So that's some top of the shelf writing right there. If you can make me come to different conclusions than you came to, you wrote some really good shit.
Question, getting back to the text of the book.
Sure.
Siswayamon, they called themselves. Sometimes that word tickled the edge of his memory, like a word he'd know.
The old blood.
What? Is it just the old blood?
I think so.
I couldn't come up with any word that's at all like that he would have. Like, if this was mad, I'd be like, oh, yeah, clearly, something's going on. But,
and
like,
it's described the same way as Egwene says almost the same thing that old tongue words tickle at the back of her head. So it's the same wording. So it's like, it's just that old Manetherin,
The old blood singing.
I was looking for some deeper meaning.
I don't think so. I think it's just, remember, he's Manetherin blood.
Yeah, I don't think, because he has no, like, there's no other tie to the Aiel. So the only thing that could be is that, yeah.
We get quite a bit here about the Shido Gaishain. There's about 200 of them taken prisoner. They're naked because they have no, again, this is one where we've got equality, naked white men and women.
Mm-hmm. Though not as much focused on the camera, but...
No, the camera definitely focuses on the women and the women's ass as she walks away. Like, there's that focus there that Jordan takes.
Yep.
But yeah, there definitely is implied more naked men than women because numbers.
If you were in the scene looking around, you would see mostly naked men.
Right, exactly. Which would be fine because they're Aiel. So.
Right.
I mean, butts.
There's the maiden that keeps messing with Perrin because Perrin's a little bit of a prude, so they keep sending naked Gaishain to him to make him uncomfortable.
To all the prudes.
Yeah, it's funny and it's annoying because it's like, okay, I get like shaming your enemy is like a thing, but it's also like you're shaming them with making them like make other people embarrassed. It's weird.
I think it was more to mess with Perrin.
For sure. And they're just using the Gaishain as this prop. And it's like, I mean, I get that they're your enemy and like they don't deserve respect, but like this level of disrespect?
I disagree entirely. I think that the Shido are in the joke as much as the rest of the Aiel are too.
And to the Shido, I don't think it's disrespectful to them. Like, I don't think they take it.
No, because her eyes are pure fury. When he looks at her eyes, they are pure fury. I think she knows exactly what's going on and understands the joke, but doesn't appreciate being used as a prop in the middle of it.
Oh, no. But I don't think the being naked part matters to them at all.
No, not the naked part. Just the being used as a prop to like...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the Shido are also kind of shitty. So they probably have like most Aiel, when they get taken Gaishain, are like okay with being Gaishain because like this is part of the deal. Like this is Jito. Like this is what we do. And then when my year and a day is up, I'll be done. And where the Shido were kind of like breaking from their tradition. So it's like they could be having like an internal struggle of I don't want to abide by this anymore. Like I'm a captive. I want to go back to doing my...
That's an interesting... I hadn't even thought about that. Or like, what if we get treated differently because we broke Jito? What if that means we're not going to be let go after a year and a day? I hadn't thought about how much the fact that they broke tradition means that they can't trust tradition to protect them. That might be a whole other reason.
They also might be looking at the rest of the Aiel through their own eyes. Like they're keeping Gaishain forever now. So like these Gaishain, like these Shido Gaishain might be like, this is it. Now I'm gonna be a Gaishain for the rest of my life because that's what they were doing.
Right. I had never considered for why they'd be angry, but that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it could just be as simple as they're pissed because they're being used as a joke, as a piece of a joke for somebody.
But that's what Perrin thinks, and that almost definitely means it's wrong.
That's true.
Right? Like, because Perrin's just an unreliable narrator. So the fact that he thinks that
He's just
they're
a
pissed
wetlander.
because they're serving him is entirely false. They're pissed because of whatever's going on with the Aiel. I interpret that as her being upset that the trick didn't work, but now reading it again, I think you're right. I think it's just related to her unrelated anger.
Yeah. And I mean, like, yeah, do some laundry. Like, I don't know. It's just... To do Gaishain service for wetlanders is probably insulting also, because wetlanders are not part of Jito.
I think they say that like throughout like the stuff, like how like the Gaishain like the Aiel Gaishain particularly hate having to serve the wetlanders because of that reason.
Yeah, that makes
like they're
sense.
not followers, so
yeah, which is one of the big things that Savannah's doing, right? Is trying to force those things together. Most Aiel, reasonably, are like, no, you can't force value sets like that.
The other Gaishain and the other Aiel are pissed because she's turning wetlanders into Gaishain, people that don't follow Jito.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping them forever.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where Savannah has used the structure of Jito, which is a way to pay off honor, which kind of should be a little voluntary, into forced servitude and slavery for life.
It all has its bad, like its negative points that are just like inherent, like morally looking at it from our perspective, and our morality is wrong. I think Jito is probably better than some of the other ones from the rest of the series. Like,
Right.
Not gonna argue with that.
It is a system of honor. I don't necessarily agree with all the points of the system, but at least it's a system.
Yeah.
It's not
And
just
even-
might makes right.
yeah.
Right. Might.
And fighting and killing is like even viewed as like bad, like negative. Like it's too easy. Like it's more honorable to just touch your enemy without hurting them. That's more honorable than killing them.
And I love how that foreshadows Rand's defeat of the Dark One. That it's more honorable to take him captive than it is to kill him.
that part got me because I did not see that coming. I loved that part. Oh my god, it all makes sense. It's all coming together.
Oh, like it wasn't going to come together. Like
I was just amazed at the genius of all the layers. Just like
That's-
another
it was-
layer comes crashing in. And I wanted to also touch on, like, Perrin thinks that the Aiel and the Mayenners have about equal amounts of not having shame around nudity, right? And I'm like, yeah, because they have an honor code, because they have a system by which they know these things, they know what their honor is, they know what their worth is, and like your shame, your puritanical inward turning shame that makes you not talk about your emotions and blah blah blah. Observe.
So can
Observe.
I make an alternate argument?
No, I'm right. Deal with it. Sure, go ahead.
There are lots of beaches in Mayenne, and it's a warm, tropical Mediterranean environment, and so nude beaches are just a thing. Whereas up in cold...
So there's not a lot of tan lines happening in Tanchico?
And then there's the sea folk too, where the nudity is not a thing. Like they don't care there either.
Well, that's toplessness, which is different than nudity.
Yeah, but it's the way the Eurocentric inner countries view it. They view it as sexualized too. It's the puritanical sexualization of just being of nudity.
Exactly. And in Mayenne, that's less of a problem.
And the sea folk have the swaying hips because they are on a ship.
Yeah, they're on a
Right, and they're swaying. So yeah, there's definitely just these weird, definitely mores around what's okay to be nude, not nude, never nude.
Right, and I just want to slap Perrin when he's like, these people should know better than to look at nudists. Just like, stop being so judgy. Ugh. Just want to slap him. As Perrin points out, a hilarious thing to be worrying about, given everything that's been happening.
He says 300 men had followed him here. This is after his whole confrontation with Aram being a psycho. And 19 of them died. A couple of names, I got Todd Alcar.
I looked him up. He goes into Malden. He goes into the aqueduct into Malden, and as far as the wiki and the companion are concerned, that's the last mention of him.
Assuming he survives, he's just one of the troops.
Yeah, I assume he survives.
And then Jondan Baron, yes. And he's actually one of the best sharpshooters that Perrin has. He's the one when he confronts the sea folk and he says, holds the branch over his head, and the arrow takes it from really far away. This is the guy that shoots that arrow. Nah. But he's also a layabout, drunkard, and lazier than Matt.
He's older than he's just an older Matt. That's what he is. If Matt had never left.
What Matt would be. What Matt could be.
I'm just happy that Aziel Thon wasn't here because I would never hear the end of that. The person that Aziel Thon is based off of is another friend of mine from JordanCon, and he used to give me so much crap because he got in the books. And then when they told me they were going to put me in, I got to be like, haha, now I'm going to be in the book. But he's like, yeah, but I got to hang out with Perrin all the time. And if he was at Dumai's Wells, I would never hear that.
You never live that down. No. The next bit is, again, I said there's a lot of recap in here. I think a lot of this is some recap. His conversation with Two Rivers Men is, again, just this is where things are, this is where things stand. Rand's Dragon Reborn, here are the men who can channel.
Recapping about protecting women.
Right.
This just explains what it is. This is the code of chivalry that Jordan and all of his male characters live by. This paragraph.
And right now, what Rand is doing is he is going through the bodies looking for women so he can memorize their names. Right? He is out there. Perrin makes a thing. He wished he'd gone with him, but he didn't want to because they've camped a mile away from the battlefield because, they only go to get water out of the wells. Hopefully it doesn't get contaminated. I hope they're probably deep enough. It shouldn't be a problem.
Oh, I bet it does. But not until after they're gone.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, don't ever want to go by Dumai's Wells again.
Yeah, there's going to be a contamination plume getting into that groundwater that...
Yeah. It's not going to be a fun place to be.
Mm-mm. No, because the meat's already pre-churned, pre-ground.
So many ravens. So many.
We aerated this compost.
Yeah, I bet in about 20 years it's going to be a great place to.
I was gonna say, like 20 years from now, they're gonna be planting all kinds of fields there.
I mean, it's real well fertilized.
A corn stalk is gonna pop up with like a skull on it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, totally. Those old battle. Well, fragments of a skull. I'm not sure if skulls survive. Yeah,
They're gonna find like Aiel spears and stuff.
Melted tips and everything.
A carrot with a great serpent ring on it.
Right, and then wolves mixed in. Like, why are there canine? What?
At least there's no shadow spawn there. Could you imagine? Like going and digging in your backyard? Like, I think this is a human skull, but it has a pig snout and horns. I'm so confused. Like, or a human skull with a beak.
What? Wait, is this a joke?
Right.
Yeah.
Paleontologists like unearth Trollocs and keep them in like a joke closet. And they're like, oh yeah, old Johnny over there kept unearthing these skulls, thought they were real. What a nutcase! He's clearly making them.
It's clearly just weird creatures in the land of madmen. No one's ever seen one for real.
Aes Sedai, yes, they're powerful women, but when they're not, they don't have the power. They're just vulnerable people like anybody else, especially vulnerable women.
I do like that he does point out that like these are women who are uniquely unprepared to defend themselves in the traditional ways because they're so reliant on the power. It's like, okay, that's a fair point.
That is a fair point.
I appreciate that we get to see the recap of you don't hurt a woman, blah, 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 but it's also like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Moving on.
You have to. I feel like sometimes you have to remind yourself that he also wrote all the other characters that don't have this problematic code of chivalrousness.
Very true.
So it's. I really do feel like and I've never got, obviously, maybe someone did at some point. I don't remember seeing it in the interviews, anyone having like a conversation with Robert Jordan about this chivalrous bullshit that's throughout the entire thing. Is that purposefully put in there to be like a reflection of, look at this. It may not be like exactly a negative way of behaving because they're not like hurting people, but it's also like a problematic way of thought.
Yeah, I would disagree. I don't think he sees it necessarily as problematic. You know,
I don't know what he sees it as. That's what I'm saying. But he did also write the characters that don't like that and are and like all the female characters and all the other male characters. So it's like
I see it as an aspect of a culture. It's one way that he relates the Borderlands and Manetheren. First of all, is they share that sort of protective culture. But he basically says this is an aspect of those cultures, and he doesn't say it's good or bad. He's just saying our characters have that obsession because that's the way they were raised, because they were raised in this culture. Yeah,
like the Ale don't have that. I did it again. The Aiel don't have that at all. Like
I love a mug of ale.
Like all the other societies, like what is there, like a handful of other ones that even have like females that fight like in their armies and stuff like that, and like they don't, like the idea of gender doesn't even come up at all in the Aiel culture. I mean, except for the fact that they have like the society, like they have to have a separate society for women.
Yeah,
like,
and all women are in one society, not in 12.
Yeah, I mean that's
because women all have equal personalities and
yeah. Instead of just mixing them in with the stone dogs, like
that would be ridiculous.
And like, how would even a patriarchal society arise with women being able to channel and like men not? Like, it does really seem that like that tradition of protecting women at all costs seems ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand in our world where it comes from, kind of, you know, the physical strength, right? But here in the Wheel of Time, he set up a world where women are literally the stronger gender.
Yeah, that's probably just his own biasness bleeding into it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have always read a lot of his characters' struggles with this as him exploring what toxic masculinity can do and how it can warp you, and I definitely see him not having the answers, but posing the questions with these characters. Probably because he didn't have an answer for them because he was raised with that culture and had traumas around hurting women to get through. So there aren't answers. There aren't clear answers, but like I do see him as very much saying, I see that there are problems here and I want characters to really make you think about it on both sides.
Like it's thought provoking. Like, is this really the right way? Like,
it's like your heroes think it, so clearly it's the right way. But like the entire cast is trying to argue them out of it. So,
yeah. and I do always argue for the unreliable narrator. And here we have 3 narrators saying this is good for us. So yeah, absolutely fooling myself when I think that he's writing it as a healthy culture. But at the same time, it's having lived in the South, that is the way people just think.
Yeah. So for him to point it out is already kind of like impressive, right? He deprogrammed enough to be able to say, I can actually write a believable counter argument to this.
We get to here where he says he had grown used to telling as much by his smell as by what his eyes told him.
Smack him! Don't do that, Perrin! Don't assume so much!
The problem of misinterpreting what he's foretelling. Like, yes, you have right information, but terrible interpretation.
This is the problem when people start to get, especially people that didn't have a lot of information before and they start getting some information, they have just enough information to ruin everything. Like they start to learn about things and then they think they know like everything about a thing and only show themselves how much they don't know. Every character does this.
Dunning-Kruger. I mean, right there, it's Perrin on the Dunning-Kruger scale of smells, right? He gets a little bit of information and thinks he's an expert all of a sudden, knows everything about everybody, when really, as an empath, which is what he is, it would take years of study and looking into the minds of other people to have any idea of what they're actually thinking, and to realize that their emotions that they're feeling probably have very little to do necessarily with what's in front of them, and everything to do with, for example, the Aiel, was feeling angry, not because she had to serve Perrin naked, but because she was captured in battle and had all these other uncertainties, and like, he's misinterpreting what's directly in front of his nose.
Because he has the same problem that like 99% of people have. And like at one time or another is they're trying to base someone else's words, smells of emotions off of how they would interpret the situation, and not how the person that they're looking at is interpreting.
And on a meta level, Jordan's writing it in so that he can show us emotions of characters without telling us what those emotions are.
It's going to be interesting seeing how they try to do this smell emotion interpretation on the screen. Like, that's going to be, I don't know.
I'm on a campaign, Michael Kramer for Noel. Storyteller, a little older, a little dashing, got the voice. And I also like the idea that, like, in a lot of ways, the in-canon Wheel of Time is the Travels of Jane Farstrider, right? That's the novel that everyone enjoys. That's the fiction that everyone loves. And so Michael Kramer, having read the Wheel of Time, then being Noel,
God, that'd be so good.
did the book, which was, like, it's circular in a way that I really like. So yeah, exactly.
That'd be cool.
That Michael Kramer, who read the books, is playing Jane, who this book is based off of, and you could do a great line where he picks it up and goes, I wonder who read it. I should read this out loud or something.
Yeah, just reads a passage.
Yeah, totally.
I would love to hear a Gleeman telling my tales.
Right, yeah, totally. Yeah. Pick it up, the wheel turns.
Yeah.
He could be a Gleeman telling stories too.
That just as a cameo in the background, I'd love to see him just in a, like, reciting something in an inn as Rand walks by.
Right, and then Kate Redding is like, the tavern keeper who's like, throwing someone out, like, in the background. Just 86ing someone and then going back to waiting tables or whatever.
And she certainly has the experience to do that convincingly.
Yeah.
They could be like a Gleeman team.
Yes, basically
like,
Maureen and Thom before Maureen and Thom.
Oh, I was thinking Thom and Denna.
Yeah, that's what, like they're both Gleeman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They could even be like during the Hunt for the Horn, like when they did the whole big thing in the Tomas Square or whatever it was.
I love
Square
that.
of Tomas.
That would be such a good cameo for them.
The quote from Lan that's really good. You can never know everything, and part of what you know is always wrong. Perhaps even the most important part. And a portion of wisdom lies in knowing that, and a portion of courage lies in going on anyway. It's a good line, and I really think that's just Jordan telling us that we don't know.
Yeah. You have to just keep reading the books. It's fine, Rafo.
And speaking to Perrin, like, even with his smells, he doesn't know everything, and he just has to make decisions based on his best guesses.
We've got Soralia smelling very grim about the prisoners. I think because they're trying to decide what to do with them, and that she doesn't look at them, but he can smell that she's thinking about them, because it's like, that whatever Soralia is not looking at pointedly, she's definitely thinking about.
I think she wants them dead.
Agreed. I think she's definitely leaning towards the, like, they're too dangerous. You can't. What Aram has said, you can't let them go.
And she's also got the whole Aiel feeling obligated to Aes Sedai thing kind of going on. They failed the Aes Sedai, and that's why they were in the Three of the Land. So like they're obligated to help the Aes Sedai. So I'm sure there's an internal struggle with that.
Right, and even if she's gotten over it, she has to convince the others to come with her over it. So, and then they ultimately go with Dat Song as a compromise instead, and then they swear fealty and get beaten a whole bunch, and they get let out of that. But like that's very much a compromise from what Loial wants, I think. We got more of Aram being a psycho, and then next thing I have is the fact that there's a mood in the camp because temporary alliances are temporary.
Yeah, and then he's thinking that he has to report it to Rand, which then he gets this colors, and Rand has just been through all the shit that he's been through.
Yeah, this is way too touchy-feely for where Rand's at right now.
Yeah, because he does think to himself, right? He's like, I have to tell Rand about this.
Yeah, but he's also like, what can Rand even do?
Yeah.
How much influence do either of us have over any of these actors? And I love that he's looking at women who can channel, but they seem to follow Rand. Men who can channel, but Rand's a special case. Like, there's just this whole, like, inverse back and forth of why the distrust is happening between all these actors. And it's, who could possibly resolve that? Turns out it's Perrin in the end.
Yeah. Well, he is the forger. He forges He forges more things than weapons.
Quite furiously, even.
Oh, yeah. He furiously forges things quite often.
Oh, Super Skylake is asking, why do the colors start happening now? Because, it doesn't start until right around now that the Ta'Virens start to see each other, and then it gets more clear as you go through the books. I have no idea why it starts now.
I don't know. I don't even know if it starts now. I might have just inserted that.
It starts in this book, for sure.
We know that the colors are the pattern trying to tell the Ta'Veren that they need to be together and to do stuff. It definitely starts before this. It starts when Perrin is in the Two Rivers still.
Oh, really?
Because that's what drives Perrin to go and help Rand.
I thought he just felt a tugging. I didn't.
I think he sees the colors too, and he sees Rand. Someone will skim through and tell us so that we don't have to do it right.
But I know it's definitely starts to get talked about more in this book because I've been binge listening through it lately.
And that is the pattern telling the trio that they need to be together. It's usually happening at a time when they need to be.
Well, no, it happens whenever they think about each other, right?
Yeah.
Like, not specific to things. It just happens whenever they think about each other. That's where there's that whole awkward scene where Matt's like seeing Min and Rand getting it on.
I'm pretty sure that it's the pattern telling them that they need to be together, and it's in a way of forcing them to be next to each other, to be near each other. It's like, you should be here. Like, you would have to dissect each time it's happening and what's happening at each moment when they're thinking about it with each character. But I'm pretty sure that it's the pattern specifically trying to tell the trio in some way that they need to be doing something or be near each other in some way. Like, Perrin's is to go and rescue Rand.
So maybe it's more about the imminent approach of the last battle and all the stuff that they have to do together that makes it happening now, right?
Things are coming to a head. Seth, maybe you remember. Do you remember? I think I'm like 90% sure that Perrin started seeing the swirling colors and stuff with Rand when he was in the Two Rivers.
Before going to Dumai's Wells?
Yeah.
It wasn't a color swirl.
Was it just the tugging?
It was just the tugging. Yeah. The color swirl is coming. That actually happens very quickly right after this. But I actually noticed in this book, as I'm reading through, I always read through the book when we start it.
I read the first 8 chapters before.
Yeah, and this is where we do get Perrin talking about there's some colors swirling whenever, and he thinks about Rand, and then a second later some colors swirl, and it's like it's actually super early, and it almost doesn't feel like it's the color swirling, but the first time is in this book. It's not before this book, and
it gets more intensive as
the closer you get to the last battle. It gets more and more intense, more and more clear. Yeah, absolutely. It's a progression that starts. I want to say now-ish because I did notice it in this book.
But why?
Why did the colors start?
That was the question that started this. That was why now.
So I think the tugging and the colors are the same phenomenon, just in increasing intensity.
But the tugging doesn't happen just because he thinks about Rand. The tugging happens on its own. The colors happen when they consciously think about each other.
That's true.
I
Yeah.
thought about it.
Good job, Super Sky. Like, you've got us all confused.
That I really do think is just the pattern being like, especially, we see a lot of effects on the pattern as the Dark One comes loose, right? Land's Taviranus becomes much more intense as he balances out, because he's not just Taviran, he's also the balance to the Dark One. And as the Dark One becomes freed, the Taviran powers of Rand increase, because he is the counterbalance. He's the balance to the Dark One's badness. And so what I see is basically Taviran becoming more powerful as the Dark One becomes more freed. That increasing amount of power leads to increasing connection between the three boys. And the pattern basically pushing back on the Dark One by saying, no, you three need to fix this shit. Like, this is bad. Get your asses in line. Get together. And also, a part of me always sort of pictures it as Jordan nodding to our headcanon, or our frustration with the fact that these boys never really get together again. And it's like all of the fans being like, we want the boys to get together and like have another moment, a Badger moment, you know? And like, that's us pushing them together and being like, no, go, as fans. In the same way that Taviran is plot armor, the colors is, fan wishes. He's like, oh yes, I know you want to do that.
I can live with being represented like that. I can live with that.
I know you want them to come together, but too bad. Yeah, and this is also where the dice really start becoming intense in Matt's head. We see there's a whole situation where, he moans when he agrees to move into the palace, and why do they have to stop now?
The colors do stop when they're together.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is the only reason why I think it's the pattern trying to be together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's, without a doubt, that's
what the pattern. Yeah.
Without a doubt in my mind that the visions are trying to get them together to help each other. It's the whole fireflies fighting the darkness. They fail when they're apart and they succeed when they're together type thing.
Okay, yeah.
Which, that vision goes through the whole, up until the battle starts. That vision is happening.
Min gives us that vision over and over and over and over again. It's always there. And that's sort of I think of each of those firefly little lights as all the various threads of the pattern fighting the last battle. All the people.
It was about a woman who fights. It's that, basically. It's a visual representation of that speech.
Yeah. Men even specifically says when they're not together, the fireflies don't take over the darkness.
Right. A lot of the boys are starting to understand their powers a little more, their Taviran powers. Matt starts to understand the dice a little better. In another couple of books,
start to actually try to use them.
Yeah, and Brand eventually starts to use his visions of the others to know where they are, and that does happen eventually, and it kind of starts in this book, even though not really. They're mostly still dingbats about it. But Matt starts to get it a little tiny bit.
And Perrin is bringing together, even though Light, I wish I was home with Fael on a forge to work and no one to call me a bloody lord. He does have that desire. He doesn't want responsibility. It is something that is a burden.
We're usually the best ones to have it.
Usually. Not always, but usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why Perrin is always such a good leader. And I think, people get very frustrated with Perrin because he's always being like, don't call me a bloody lord, and be like, just accept it already. But the whole point is the fact that he doesn't want to be a bloody lord is why he's such a good bloody lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He really does try to drive that point home very hard.
Maybe a little too much.
Slightly too many.
Ruminating on the axe and the fact that it feels so good. I think we're getting the danger point. We're not that far away from him throwing the axe away.
He's turning that corner of I'm starting to like it. Oh.
It's just familiar enough, and he's no longer feels like he's a blacksmith, right? He feels like he's a warrior.
Right.
Such a good scene, the scene when he throws the axe away.
Mm-hmm.
I was so glad when Elias came back, because I was like, sweet, we're going to have a good resolution to this whole axe conversation that Perrin's having with himself. Elias is going to help with that, and he does.
We get the return of Loial. We see Loial for the first time. Not the first time, but the first time in this book.
From a tiny clump of trees he called restful and shady. Oh, poor Loial. He's out there just clinging to these little shrubs, come on, chill me out. Yeah.
Every single time the Ogier pick up a weapon, and it's just devastation.
Absolutely devastation.
They just wreak havoc.
They're like, oh, armor? We just have tree bark skin that's tough enough to not deal with it. Yeah, we don't need armor.
Oh man, like when he fights the Trollocs when they attack them in the streets outside of Camille. Oh my god, like he just all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so big.
And I can see why like Jordan didn't want to use them like all the time, is because it's like the Aiel with normal warriors, like with the regular, like they're like one Ogier would be worth like 50 regular fighters.
Right. Oh, easily. Yeah. With the reach and the near invulnerability and just the implacableness. Like, there's a reason Perrin and Loial are a terrifying combo, because he's the biggest man you've ever encountered, wielding an axe that's just ridiculous. And then, you've got Aram coming at you with just lightning quick sword. Like, the three of them.
And then you don't see Gaul
in this battle,
but he sees you.
No,
you just die.
Yeah.
Just die.
Occasionally, Gaul kills someone.
People just drop dead, and it's like, oh.
I mean, and that's one thing I don't hear a lot of people talk about, is the parallels between the Aiel and assassins, with the face veils and the stealth and the using the knives and like, there is a certain amount of like, man, you put an Aiel in a black cloth and he looks very much like a ninja in the traditional like ninja sense.
just to clarify, you're actually talking about the Society of Assassins from like the Mideast, like not the idea of an assassin, like actual assassins that's where the name comes from.
Sure, yeah. I'm talking about like our society's very stereotypical like ninja, like where's the ninja? Oh, they're gone. Like sort of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ninja type. Like
yeah, like they're much the Aiel are much more like the actual ninjas, like where they're silent killers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know much about that, but I've always wondered, like, exactly how problematic is this, Jordan? What's going on here? Because it's so easy to say they're just desert ninjas, and I'm like,
I always viewed them as like, when I describe them to like when I try to get people like interested in the Wheel of Time, I always describe the Aiel as or Native American ninjas that follow Bushido but look like Irishmen, because that's kind of what they are, but not really. They're tribal and like their societies are Native American-y, and like their social structures of like the matriarchal and like the way they live, like physically, like where they live. And then there's the code of Bushido. It's essentially just like Bushido but different.
You've run into the problem that I run into whenever I try and describe a culture from any Wheel of Time world, is it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and then a whole bunch of something else thrown in there to create a whole thing that's a remix of stuff you've seen before, but don't focus on any one aspect of it, because there isn't one thing that makes this culture that culture.
Which is
There's
nice.
Sampling from lots of different cultures.
It is nice that none of it's one-to-one.
That's one of my like the things that I love the most about the Wheel of Time. I did a panel, like I was like, I want to do a panel on this at JordanCon. He stealth taught us about all different cultures from our world through all of the cultures in his books. Like if it makes, especially if you were like young reading this, it makes you a lot more open to when you see these things happening, and like some of the cultural differences between the groups in the Wheel of Time in real life.
I also think it makes it easier to put yourself in someone else's head and have empathy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you could see, especially seeing how all the different cultures feel about the same situations, like, and how they all see them differently and feel differently about them.
Yeah, for sure. So Loial feels the mood. Loial is wilting from way more than the heat. Loial is like, hey, Perrin, all that stuff you were thinking about for the last 4 pages, I'm on the level. You don't need to read me in. I'm already there with you.
I gotcha. I don't need to smell it. I can sense it.
Yeah, because Ogier just, Really, honestly, Perrin should have been talking about his smell sense with Loial, because then he could have gotten some, like, crash course on how to be an empath responsibly.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing, but it's the same thing.
I feel like the Ogier are legitimate empaths. Weak empaths, but empaths.
Yeah, he could have given Perrin some pointers on, like, boundaries and sense of identity and, like...
Yeah. They're much more in tune with nature, and people are nature.
Right, and Perrin is, like, a wolf brother, so he's even more nature-y than most people.
Yeah, he's just a baby in it, where the Ogier have lived it their entire lives.
And they have a culture that, like, takes that into account, whereas Perrin is like, I'm clearly evil and should probably be, considered a devil or something. Very different.
And he has, I really feel like one sentence from Loial of him saying, like, stop trying to interpret their sense in the way you would feel about the situation. Like, like loyal, like if someone is an empath, like, and their entire culture is built around being empaths, like he would know to say that to Perrin. But he's also a child himself, so like
they're the same age, effectively. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If anything, Loial's quite a bit younger than Perrin.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I always put Loial closer to like 15, 16 in ogre terms.
I guess, yeah.
He's like 93 or something like that.
If he was like 100, maybe he'd be like 20.
Okay, yeah, fair. That's fair.
They talk about him being barely off of his mother's coach strings.
Right, yeah.
And like,
he's really just
you know,
like a kid tagging along behind Perrin, except that he's half a Perrin again as big, so...
Yeah, and still 90 years old.
And, I mean, we brought up PTSD a little bit here, but let's talk about what Loial is suffering from as a teenager forced to kill. I mean, again, talk about war parallels
and very
there.
much like
right?
Aram, in the sense that, like, he did not come from a place of ever expecting to do violence, ever. Mm-hmm. He was not prepared mentally for that, and he's come to terms with it in the last, 12 months of the books happening a few times.
And it's hard not to see Aram and Loial as the two sides of Perrin, the axe and the hammer, right?
Right. Loial being the hammer that can be used for many things, including building.
And he literally creates things. Like, he can grow trees.
Can grow trees, can carve, can do all... Yeah, he is the creator.
He can grow weapons out of trees, right? He's got all the things. Yeah, and I like that. It's like, again, Loial should have sat down with Aram and been like, can we talk about this dark hole inside your soul?
Yeah, jeez.
For real. He just needed a good role model.
Yeah, like some Two Rivers to back and some time with Loial. Like, just talk it out.
Shit, I need that right now.
Mood.
I'm feeling a little like Winter Soldier with Aram, right? This, like, evil killing machine that if they just took him to Wakanda and sat him down and, like, got him to chill out for a minute, he could have been a very effective, very centered person who could have, like, reconciled his belief in the way of the leaf with his need to do violence and get revenge and come together.
I if you want to use that like the same analogy, I would see him more as like the bad guy, Zola, because he wasn't taken and programmed like this. This is just pure. This happened to him through the circumstances of shit happening to him in his life, which is kind of like what happened with that guy. His family was killed and he was in it, and then he progressed to the point of being a supervillain, which is kind of where Aram is.
Oh yeah, Aram's not competent enough to be a supervillain.
No, not at all. He's not smart enough either. But he's coming more from a place like of the circumstances of his past instead of being taken and programmed in a way.
Yeah, I think Mihaf makes a good point. Throw Aram in a steading.
Seriously. Give him a few decades.
That is Wakanda. There you go.
Yeah, exactly what I say. Yeah, but
he needs to go in there with the Dark Front, like in the same kind of program as the Dark Front or as the Dreadlords, except not in the same cells because that would be rude.
But yeah, Aram and Alviarin need sort of similar treatment.
There are so many people that would benefit just from like a few months of therapy in the Wheel of Time.
Oh, I know someone who can help. Grendel. When he saw Perrin, Loial came striding across the camp. Sitting his saddle, Perrin was 2 or 3 hands shorter than Loial standing. "Perrin," Loial whispered, "this is all wrong. It isn't right, and it is dangerous besides." For an Ogier, it was a whisper. He sounded like a bumblebee the size of a mastiff. Some of the Aes Sedai turned their heads. "Could you speak a little louder?" Perrin said almost under his breath. "I think somebody in Andor didn't hear. In the west of Andor." Loial looked startled, then grimaced, long eyebrows brushing his cheeks. "I do know how to whisper, you." This time, it was unlikely anyone could hear clearly more than 3 paces away or so. "What are we going to do, Perrin? It is wrong holding Aes Sedai against their will. Wrong and wrong-headed. I have said that before, and I will again. And that isn't even the worst. The feel here. One spark and this place will erupt like a wagon load of fireworks. Does Rand know about this?" "I don't know," Perrin said to both questions. And after a moment, the Ogier nodded reluctantly. "Someone has to know, Perrin. Someone has to do something." Loial looked north over the wagons behind Perrin, and Perrin knew there was no putting it off any longer. Unwillingly, he turned stepper. He would rather have worried over Aes Sedai and Ashaman and Wise Ones till his hair fell out. But what had to be done, had to be done. Think of good on High Chasaline.
Think of the good, Chasaline. Ugh, my heart! That line just the way it repeats.
When everything's so miserable.
Yeah.
I love doing a Loial read, by the way.
You do a really good Michael Kramer
That
Loial
was good.
impression.
That was good. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Definitely stealing everything from Michael Kramer.
I can tell.
I can
tell.
Parroted it, but yeah.
I know those
Man.
cadences. I can tell what you're imitating. But it's a really good impression. Like, I couldn't do that. I don't have...
Thank you,
like,
yeah.
This is not going to do it.
I've been working on my Loial impression. I'm very proud of it, actually, at this point.
That's going to have to be your cosplay at JordanCon.
I was gonna say cosplay. You might need to make some stilts.
I need to see Loial, some like cast image of Loial in makeup so we can start making our costumes. Right? We need some starting point.
I doubt we're gonna see it until he comes on screen on the show.
All right. No, not even a shot in the trailer.
I don't think so.
There's too much to explain with Ogier for a trailer.
I think it wants to be. I don't think we're gonna see Trollocs or Ogier before we see them on the show.
We're gonna see pretty people in magic.
Yeah. We might see a Mergel, only because they're so simple. They're just humans
And
with
they're
no
ring
eyes.
wraiths, so everyone knows what they are already.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real.
Well, Thom, once again, thank you so much for coming on. It was a super pleasure.
Yeah, it's very fun to talk with you.
And don't forget to go support JordanCon. They are a wonderful organization, and we want them to still be there.
And Dragonmount.
Dragonmount.
All the
I have to
support.
name
Definitely
drop
Dragonmount.
Dragonmount.
Mhm.
Yes.
Might be like the cover art from the original books that I hate the least is Crown of Swords, I think.
Oh my god, this is one of my least favorite of all the sweet covers.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, what is this? It's like confused John Travolta.
Oh, the dude is bad. I mean,
The dude is terrible, yeah.
No, yeah. The people on almost all the books are bad.
Oh, you're talking about all the everything else?
Yeah, like the everything else is like...
It's at least unique. He's using a different color. It's not like out in the countryside.
Yeah,
with
like
same
all the other
browns.
ones are.
Yeah, like all the other ones are. Like he's hitting a unique color, unique architecture. Like he actually makes an attempt to portray Shadow Logoth as something
Scary.
different.
Yeah.
But what is this? What is this? Mashadar isn't yellow. Mashadar is not yellow glowy. It's not yellow sparkles.
Rand is also not Nicolas Cage. So
It's the hole he fell into when they crossed the streams.
He's less Nicolas Cage on this cover art than he is on Eye of the World. Eye of the World, it's just straight up Nick Cage.
This is the same moon from Eye of the World for sure. It's the same phase of the moon for sure.
Well, definitely. Yep.
So it's been like some even number of months.
Yeah, and we have Lan, and then on Eye of the World we have Lan in samurai armor when he never wears armor ever in the entire series one time.
Yeah, I love the sweet covers for how bad they are.
The ebook covers are fantastic, and some of the covers from like other countries are so much better. I don't remember them all. Story time again, I guess. We went to Jordan's house for a thing we did a Tarvalon.net like gathering in Charleston, and Harriet invited us to her house. So we went to her house, and one wall in the library is just all of the Wheel of Time books from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
So it was just like, we just pulled a couple off and we were looking at the ones from like China and Japan and like all over Europe. And they were so cool. So cool.
Because he must get a copy every time a new one gets made. Yeah. So that makes sense. Like,
and they can't all be bad, even though several of them are bad. I've seen a lot of really like...
Oh, there. Some of them are terrible. And some of them are just like block letters. Like...
Yeah. And then there's what they've done with the audiobooks since the show news happened, and I hate it so much. It used to be the sweet covers, and it was fun because it reminded me of reading the paperbacks. And now it's just that like washed out pastel snake wheel in whatever color. And that's what I get in my player. It's so annoying.
Soon it'll be the actors.
That'd be better than just the bland art. I mean, though the actors are starting to get into, as I'm listening to the book again, like just to refresh myself on this book, like I'm really putting the actors in there deliberately, and it's working because I've never had good faces for any of the characters.
yes.
So it's like now I have specific faces I can put to that, and it's like, oh, this is different.
I don't think I've reread it since they started like really announcing like all the actors. I want to reread it and start trying to picture that.
Oh, it's surreal.
Thom is going to be the hardest one.
Yeah, I don't have a good image of Thom yet. What I actually wanted to do was say I bought a car, which I'm very excited about. I think I've told both of you about that already, but
It's fun though.
I wanted to. So I'm changing my background to my car. So I'm gonna get out of the way. But yeah, I bought a 2004 Honda
Accord.
Accord. Thank you.
Yes.
I want to say Acura, but that's not right. Honda Accord. Yes. Sorry, you signed so many papers that you forget. Anyway, so it's a beauty.
Do you have any fun bumper stickers or like?
I definitely put the Watt Spoilers sticker on the back of it.
Do you have one of those like? Do you have a regular license plate, or is your license plate number like something fun?
Well, I haven't gotten a license plate yet. I literally just got this like last night. So I haven't. Today I got insurance this morning. I'm still taking it through its paces. But it's a beautiful car. It's this beautiful they call it pearlescent blue with a leather. It's got leather interior. Like it's got like a super nice package. Even though it's like an older car, it doesn't have that many miles on it, and it's like.
I was gonna say something
nice
about your super nice package, but the.
I'll see you at JordanCon.
Leather seats would not be good here in Florida. You'd be scraping your ass off of them.
Sure. Yeah, no, what I love about it is just the easiness of cleanliness, especially with timber.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, that would be so nice to just be able to wipe them down and not worry about, like, dirt embedding themselves in the cloth.
Mm-hmm. And endless dog hair.
We actually, when we moved down here, we used we rented a minivan, like one of those, like soccer mom minivans. And it was freaking fantastic. Like it was so like we put so much crap in it. It was so comfortable. We drove 17 hours from New York, and like we didn't want to murder everybody because we were comfortable while we were driving. So then we bought a minivan also. I named it Bale Scream. It is nice. It is a Decepticon, and like I replaced the symbol on the emblem on the hood with a Decepticon logo, and it says Bale Scream on the side of it.
Part of me really wanted to like I was looking at the Honda Odyssey and just like pulling out the seats and just setting up a bed in the back so I can go camping and just sleep in the back of it. And part of me was like, that would be kind of fun.
Well, that's why this is so great. The seats just fold into the floor. It takes like 3 seconds. So like on long road trips, sometimes like Erin and I would, like when we drove to JordanCon last time, my back was bothering me like halfway through. So we just put the seats down in the back and I laid in the back on like a comforter.
Nice.
It was really nice.
I did actually crawl into the trunk just to see if I would, how many bodies would fit.
Reasonable.
That's
question.
as you do. And it turns out, actually I couldn't lay out comfortably, but I could certainly curl up on my side and take a nap in the trunk with plenty of room.
So 1 victim comfortably, 2 victims on
one. Sure. And 3 with dismemberment. That's pretty much how I feel about it. Yeah. So that's the important thing, know, how many bodies fit in your trunk.
It's very important.
It was timber approved. We took it to the park. He had a blast.
Yay, timber approved.
But yeah, I've been stuck sort of in the city with nowhere to really go and without the ability to get out of the city, and it's been just a tough year for everybody, and I'm really excited to have a car to just explore a little bit, because Portland's so close to so many natural wonders.
Yeah.
And with spring and summer coming up, it's like I just need to be able to get to them.
Yeah, the coast, the gorge, the mountains.
The desert, the rainforest, if you want to go a little further, and we're just in the center of everything.
I'd love to go like on a tour of the national parks. That would be a lot of fun.
So many.
Well, and I just love camping. I love camping. I love getting out of the city and just being in the wilderness and shitting in a hole. Those are all like my favorite things in the world to do. Yeah.
I prefer air conditioning and toilets, but that's me.
Well, and don't forget, air conditioning is a necessity in Florida, and not so much up here. We actually have beautiful weather without the air conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New York. I only moved here like 4 years ago.
Air conditioning is still necessary in New York. I have lived in Philly in the summers, and it is miserable, and I know New York's exactly the same.
Yeah, and I lived like on the coast, like on the Atlantic Ocean, so it gets a little humid.
Yeah, and that's where the air conditioning comes in handy, is it keeps you from having just sweat running down everything.
Oh, that's exciting. I'll stop.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?